It's damn cool to be sitting on a couch with a celebrity from the wedding industry.
Celeb, non-celeb doesn't matter. It's about the good energy in the room.
Weddingsutra, of course, started in 2000.
24 years ago. The time when dot-coms were just as what today we are in the time of startups.
Yes.
Everybody was launching a dot-com.
You were with Times. What exactly happened that you thought that Weddingsutra.com should be created?
There was always a curiosity about how do you run a business.
Parthip, must have been such a proud moment for you that you were just curious about business and there you were. Did you ever think Weddingsutra would actually last for 24 years? Did you really see this for a lifetime?
We go through, as an entrepreneur, you go through different phases. And I know a lot of people asked me this question.
I'm sure.
That was also a time when a lot of dot-coms went through this huge crash. Almost 20 to 30 journalists who had quit their jobs at Times of India to launch portals which were launched by very big brands. And they were all back in their jobs. I knew the show must go on. The role of Weddingsutra was much, much more important back then because most designers, wedding vendors, wedding venues didn't even have a website.
You have made most of the brides competent enough like a wedding planner or somebody in the decor space. Is that true or false? Do you think the portals that have come up in the last few years, and we see a lot of them?
Yeah, I've seen hundreds and hundreds of them. Yeah.
Does this bother you? What is the most exciting interaction that you enjoy the most?
When I launched Weddingsutra, I ended up even going to Chawls for wedding information because there was a mehendi artist who I knew was very big in Churni Road. We were very proud of her because she had given employment to 100 freelancer mehendi walis. I always tell people, always have that one talent and you will never be unemployed even a single day.
Parthip, don't you ever get insecure? Tell me, has anyone let you down ever?
Of course, yes. I will be lying if I say no. Well, let karma take its course.
My God. Parthip, I am going to be putting a huge allegation on you. दोस्तों, इवेंट इंडस्ट्री की तो हम बहुत सारी बातें कर रहे हैं इस पॉडकास्ट पे. आज के जो हमारे गेस्ट है वो स्पेसिफिकली वेडिंग इंडस्ट्री से है. लेकिन ये एक ऐसी पर्सनालिटी है जो कि ना वेडिंग कंपनी चलाते हैं, ना डिज़ाइन डेकोर करते हैं, ना केटरिंग करते हैं, ना होटल में काम करते हैं, लेकिन इस पूरे वेडिंग के इकोसिस्टम पे इनका काफ़ी ज़्यादा कंट्रोल भी है और इन्फ्लुएंस भी है. ये है Weddingsutra.com के को-फाउंडर एंड CEO पार्थिप. पार्थिप की जिंदगी की शुरुआत हुई थी when he started working with Times. Times of India एक इतना बड़ा ब्रांड नेम हुआ करता था और आज भी है. उसके साथ काम करना was like a prestige, एक स्टेटमेंट हुआ करता था. But पार्थिप had his own dreams and aspirations. .com के ट्रेंड में सबसे पहले इन्होंने एंटर कुछ इस तरह किया जबकि लोग वेडिंग्स के बारे में जानते ही नहीं थे. मॉनसून वेडिंग तक शायद नहीं पहुंची थी हमारे घरों तक, जबकि weddingsutra.com ईरा का एक वो चेंजिंग फेस था जिसकी वजह से लोग वेडिंग्स के बारे में समझने लगे. शुरुआत तो हुई थी डिज़ाइनर्स के बारे में बातें करके, होटल्स के बारे में, और धीरे धीरे ये इकोसिस्टम बढ़ता गया इनटू वेडिंग प्लानर्स, डेकोरेटर्स, डिज़ाइनर्स जो डेकोर डिज़ाइन करते हैं, मेकअप आर्टिस्ट, फोटोग्राफी, फूड क्यूरेटर्स, गिफ्टिंग एक्सपर्ट्स. आज तो खैर ऐसी नौबत आ चुकी है कि अगर कोई भी वेडिंग इंडस्ट्री का कन्वेंशन होता है, कोई भी गेट टुगेदर होता है, चाहे कितना भी छोटा या बड़ा हो, पार्थिप त्यागराजन एंड वेडिंगसूत्रा हैव टू बी अ पार्ट ऑफ इट. इनको तो हम ऑफिशियली सब जानते हैं, लेकिन मैं चाहती थी कि हम इनकी जर्नी को समझें और कुछ इंस्पिरेशन लें कि किस तरीके से यू कैन बी बिफोर टाइम. आप अकेले हो सकते हो इस जर्नी में, लेकिन आपको बस अपने कन्विक्शन के साथ आगे बढ़ना है. और आज देखिए, ही इज द मोस्ट पॉपुलर नेम ऑफ द इंडियन वेडिंग इंडस्ट्री. लेट्स चैट अप विद पार्थिप त्यागराजन. It's damn cool to be sitting on a couch with a celebrity from the wedding industry.
Thank you, Mareesha.
Parthip, it's so good to be chatting with you. I think the amount I've enjoyed chatting pre-podcast, I think we've never had that kind of time in our professional capacities to be...
Because we're always around with people.
Yeah, so true. But Parthip, I'm going to start firstly with this whole burden that you are carrying on yourself all the time, which is a brand Weddingsutra. And you know that everyone's watching you. Okay, how does it feel to honestly, okay, as you may not accept it or whatever, but you are a celebrity in your own right. And you know that when you walk into a room, everyone knows who you are. Tell me, how is that feeling?
I think it's still not sunk in because it's been, as you know, such a struggle for so many years. And I think the way I look at it is I'm entering a room full of energy, happy energy. So celeb, non-celeb doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
It's about the energy in the room, the good energy in the room. And how does one make the most of that beautiful moment?
Wow. You put it so simply, Parthip. I'm just amazed because I know the kind of pressure you would be feeling from within because there's a constant expectation that people have from you. They want to be acknowledged by you and they want to make you feel special. Does that sometimes get you into a space of, I want to be just left alone, guys. Just don't invite me today for anything.
I like my space.
Okay.
But I also, we all enjoy attention, don't we? So it's a nice feeling to be pampered, acknowledged. But then after some time, we all need our space. Yeah.
Tell me, Weddingsutra, of course, started in 2000, but
24 years ago.
24 years ago.
The time when .coms were just as what today we are in the time of startups.
Yes.
As you would know, between Jan and March, everybody was launching a .com. Somebody even launched a site called Maybhi.com. And they were, and not just wedding portals, there were so many entertainment portals.
Yes.
And a lot of, you won't believe it, but there are a lot of venue booking portals which are doing well now.
Yes.
There's somebody who actually launched a venue booking portal way back in February. And I actually met one of their first employees today who's in a very senior position in a hotel.
Oh.
So there were a lot of entrepreneurs who were taking the plunge to launch portals, women's portals, fashion, beauty, and many others.
Oh, but tell me, you were with Times,
That's right.
And then what exactly happened that you thought that weddingsutra.com should be created? What happened in that phase?
So I come from a background where nobody in my family has ever run a business. Either they are in academics or in the services or in the corporate sector. The closest somebody has come to, I was probably the second MBA in my family. Otherwise, everybody was engineers or doctors. Or they got into like my father got into the armed forces or his brothers got into the railways. So for me, there was always a curiosity about how do you run a business? And while I really enjoyed my tenure at Times, I just felt I really still don't understand how businesses make money. And when my business partner, who was who was also with me in B school, shared the idea, I knew exactly what she was looking for, which was a wedding planning portal. Because when we started, a lot of people thought we are a matchmaking portal because in 2000 was the year when a couple of, and as you know, at that time, there was a profession called wedding planner was not known.
Yes.
And leave alone, understanding of the wedding industry. So when she shared the idea with me, I looked at it very much from the media lens. I knew even back then, whether it was De Beers Diamonds, Kodak photography, or VIP suitcases for everybody back then also. So while it was not articulated, back then, weddings were a very, very big part of the consumption in urban India.
Yes.
They continue to be today and they will continue to be so for many, many years to come, hopefully.
Of course. But when you started with Weddingsutra, how did that name happen?
We were just sitting, me and my business partner, And we were it's actually very interesting.
Yeah.
We thought of Weddings India, Weddings Online.
Yes.
We thought of an Indian name. And then suddenly we were just talking about the combination. And then we said Weddingsutra. And I remember an ex-colleague of mine from Times asking me, how did you manage to get the URL? Because that time there was a race to book the URLs.
Yes.
Today also it's not easy to get a URL.
Yeah.
But I remember we just booked the URL. And interestingly, we got to know of 2 other people who are launching a wedding portal. So when we went up to a lot of writers, they said, I've been approached by a wedding portal. We did a little bit of investigation and we figured out who is launching.
Yeah.
And there was this deep desire.
Huh.
So I know we thought probably there's space for only one wedding portal or only one wedding company in India. I'm sure the first wedding planner would have also thought the same.
Absolutely.
And we just said, we want to be the first wedding portal in India. And that is how we gave whatever possible, whether it was the financial resources, time to launch, to put together the content plan, and everything was up and running in 4 weeks' time.
My God.
Right
4
from the
weeks.
time we decided on the URL till the date it was launched. So we decided around mid-Feb 2000, and in mid-March, the site was up. And I still remember that beautiful moment when I sent an email to my relatives, colleagues, and ex-classmates and friends to send them the link to www.weddingsutra.com.
Oh my God. Parthip must have been such a proud moment for you.
Now when I talk about it, it is every moment in those 4 weeks of planning till launch.
Yeah.
Is what comes close to what I call a historic moment.
Yes, indeed. Did you ever think Weddingsutra would actually last for 24 years? Did you really see this for a lifetime?
We go through, as an entrepreneur, you go through different phases. And that is all about how people around you make you feel. So you meet somebody and they say, hey, you've hit upon a great idea. And then you meet people who are really your well-wishers.
Right.
And they actually ask you questions like, so for how long will you do this? And I know a lot of people asked me this question.
I'm sure.
And then there are those, I shouldn't be saying it because why should one even remember them right now, who would actually say, yes, I know you launched Weddingsutra, but what are you doing now? This is 1 month after I launched.
Oh my
and this
God.
was the same person who was congratulating me because March 2000, April 2000, that was also a time when a lot of .coms went through this huge crash. We knew people were laid off. So I would say now that I'm talking about it, it was almost that COVID moment where things were just shutting and you don't know.
It was all crumbling down.
People I know almost 20 to 30 journalists who had quit their jobs at Times of India to launch portals, which were launched by very big brands and by entrepreneurs like me, and they were all back in their jobs 30 days or 50 days later. So that was what. And also, I must say, we were also in one day we were like the page 3 because there was somebody who even actually launched a eTuesday club, which would bring together all the .commers in the city. And many of these .commers were from very distinguished family backgrounds or who had studied at some of the best schools in the world. So it was also a great feeling to be a part of the show.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
it was not a party, but it was a show. And deep down, I knew the show must go on.
Oh my God, Parthip. I think then technically that becomes really the first phase of Indian entrepreneurs.
In the digital space.
Absolutely.
Before that, it was software.
Yes.
And then digital. Yes.
Then it was digital. And digital, I think we all know, especially when it's connected to the space of glamour, media, entertainment, that there can be money, but then there are a lot of freebies. how much of that did you all have to deal with in terms of people wanting to get featured for free? And how do you then, back then, decide where to put a full stop and, get the revenue rolling for yourself? Take me through that part.
Very interesting question, Mareesha. Featured for free. And of course, before that, I'll talk about how do you make money. So there are so many people who would look at the site and say, all this is fine, but how do you make money? Because even today, we know we don't pay to access Facebook. Imagine asking people to pay to visit a website. And talking about this, even my own friends would not even give their wedding photos. Because at that time, internet was, you didn't know what is internet. There was no social media at that time.
Yes.
So we were a media platform and there was a lot of excitement among some people, including actress Simone, who played the role of... The first couple I had interviewed at that time was Hina and her husband, who very enthusiastically shared their engagement photos.
Really?
And talked about their wedding. They were the first celebrity couple to be featured, because for them it was a big thing to be a part of India's first wedding portal. But many others who were probably not from a media and entertainment background, would actually tell me that, sorry, but I'm not very comfortable with my photos going up on the internet. It was not about Weddingsutra, it was about the internet.
Wow.
Being from a marketing background, one knew that it's all about brand building today. And I know a lot of people would not be able to relate with that. And to each his own. Sometimes if you have a good business mindset, I will not do this for free. That also keeps you healthy in some way, right?
True.
Otherwise, there's a lot of stress which builds up.
Yes.
That stress about when will this be monetized? Will it be 6 months? Will it be 12 months? Will it take longer? So that stress is something which only you are able to handle. And there comes a time when you build your brand and people understand your brand, they spend time on your brand and they say, I want to be featured here. But still you are not part of an established media house like the Times of India you're aware of. It's a different feeling to be featured on a Femina or a Filmfare and of course Times of India or Bombay Times. But to be featured on Weddingsutra, you are still telling people this is a wedding portal. And we are talking about... But I must tell you, Mareesha, the role of Weddingsutra was much, much more important back then. I'll tell you why. Because most designers, wedding vendors, wedding venues didn't even have a website. So the only platform where brides could see 20 designer collections was Weddingsutra. Because none of these designers had a website. So while we may have had a very niche audience, the audience was actually treating Weddingsutra as a Bible, as their bridal Bible, because everything from beauty advice, relationship, fashion, travel, there was only one place which had this content, besides a few other women's portals who had a wedding section. But there was only one place called Weddingsutra. And of course, then you know what happened later, 10 years later, 15 years later. Every media company started releasing wedding specials. And then things changed. But back then, Weddingsutra and a few other platforms were the only ones which shared engaging content for fashion forward and other brides.
It was definitely the first. And I would say right on time. I'd not call it before time, but right on time.
I would say when I think of the struggles, I would say, yes, it was a little before time. It's just that it was only one's own motivation and good wishes of one's near and dear ones. Which enabled me to survive.
Tell me, talking about survival, obviously the first chunk of months, like you said, when you're watching your colleagues, break down and leave their passion and go back to their jobs. How was that phase? How did you rather keep yourself motivated? How did you have the conviction to hang in there? And how long did it take you in terms of months or years to understand and to get the rewards monetarily
True.
for you to eventually grow your team and your business?
True. It's very difficult sometimes to, look back.
Yeah.
And, think of what happened when. Because the difficult moments is something which you would like to forget and you don't really remember. But like every entrepreneur, I went through my low phases. But what was very different back then is you did not have anything like the community support. Today, any business you are running, even if you're not part of a big network, you have Facebook groups.
Yes.
Whether you're a travel entrepreneur, whether you are a relationship counselor, you can really join a lot of groups where they are entrepreneurs of of a similar kind of doing a similar kind of thing. And you also, when you're following a lot of influencers on social media, you see them, talk about challenges with humor.
Yeah.
Which is the best part about
Which is
life, right?
today.
Where how do you handle any crisis?
Yes.
Including, so many crises. Everybody probably looks at those beautiful shows which you are orchestrating as glamorous, fun, and what a life. But only you know what you experience behind the scenes.
True.
And similarly, but what was really the most difficult part was not running Weddingsutra or not. I think one of the traits I have is tolerance to ambiguity, which means there are a lot of scenarios where, a lot of things, like, for example, even if you were to tell me, Parthip, come for this podcast, I will just come without asking you any questions. That is what I call tolerance to ambiguity. I'll say, okay, I'll sit in front of Mareesha and let me chat. I don't even need to know what she's going to ask me.
Right.
I think similarly, I had this tolerance to ambiguity way back then, where I said, okay, we'll take it as it comes.
Excellent.
Which can be a strength and a weakness, because sometimes in business, you need clarity. These are the deliverables which are from you, and these are the deliverables from me, and that helps you monetize it.
Yes.
But sometimes too less tolerance to ambiguity means you miss out on opportunities. Yes. So life is about that. There are times when you have to have tolerance to ambiguity, and then there are times it's all about clarity. You are running a very successful business too, so everything is also about the fact the targets you are giving your different business verticals.
True.
Or event could be, you don't know what the event is, how the event is going to shape up. There's a plan B, but at the end of the day, there has to be a clarity on deliverables. So I was talking about tolerance to ambiguity, but I think I would say the most challenging or difficult part of my life as an entrepreneur was the loneliness, because I didn't really have any friends in the wedding industry. Yeah. There was really, they were the wedding decorators or those in traditional businesses who didn't understand my world.
True.
And I really didn't have friends in the wedding industry. And all my classmates from school, college, there were one or two of my friends who were always very enthusiastic. They would always ask me, tell me about Weddingsutra. Are you doing this? Are you doing that? Have you got in touch with Nallis? Why don't you start, why don't you start retailing Nalli saris online? Or why don't you go and do shows in the US? Or my aunt is in Hong Kong. Why doesn't she get to do something with you? They would be bursting with ideas, because for them, this was truly an innovation. They understood weddings, having either planned their own wedding or their siblings' wedding.
Yes.
But they always looked at my space with a lot of interest. And there were many others, I would say the majority. They were well-wishers too, but they just did not understand. When I didn't understand what direction Weddingsutra is going to take, how can I expect them
to understand?
True.
So in a way, I think it's okay then to just walk on a path that doesn't seem to have the end, route. But it is very much possible that you end up creating your own route.
Absolutely.
Like it has been in your case, because you had no one to compare your business to.
Absolutely.
And
sometimes you need to compare, because I'm sure people look at Mareesha and Hemant and say, I want to be as successful as them one day. So.
True. You just need that, So it's not like you're competing to be like someone.
But you also, it helps to have role models. Yeah.
Yeah. So in that phase, I remember there were just a couple of more such portals that had come up.
Yes.
Are they around?
All of them shut or they moved into the offline space. So there was a shadiinfo.com, there was a Shadi Online, and they all moved into wedding management. None of the others continued.
Didn't you ever think of becoming a wedding planner?
I think back then one thing I knew is that this space is not organized, and it is very difficult. It was very difficult to get people to pay for that intangible service.
Yeah.
And that also came from an observation of mine that even today it's like that, but wedding planning per se is a very emotional thing, and families enjoy the process of doing it themselves.
Yes.
So I had a very nice meeting with a very accomplished jewelry designer named Poonam Soni. She's still doing very well today.
Yeah.
I still remember meeting her at her beautiful studio in Fort, where she spoke about the fact that the one time the lady of the house gets an opportunity to be doing something from start to finish, especially if she's been a housewife, is during her child's wedding. And she enjoys the process of event management. So that gave me that insight that it's a very, very emotional experience. And my business partner, Madhulika Mathur, also wholeheartedly agreed with me, having herself had that experience of being a bride. So I was not married then. I did not know what it is like to organize. The only wedding I had helped organize was my own sister's wedding, which I took a lot of interest in.
Right.
As much as my parents and my sister when it came to deciding on the invitation, even though I was still in my first year junior college. But I always took interest in anything which is about this. But I also knew that at that time, it is not easy to pull it off as a business. But what I did not think about was the fact that there were so many niche opportunities offline. We all know that beyond wedding planning, there exists so many opportunities. It's just that we did not have the awareness. Today, we know of so many businesses, from fruits to renting furniture to gifting, show management, hospitality. There is so much more today.
True.
The awareness was not there because we could not really engage with too many people. And all the event managers I knew, they said, I don't touch weddings. They are a pain.
Oh, yes.
And I remember even going to some fashion photographer friends saying, you know what, I know an NRI couple. They are looking for a photographer. And they almost like, listen, weddings. I'm not going to go with my camera to a wedding. But you know one thing, Mareesha? Today, the same photographers are telling me, Parthip, I missed the bus. I should have launched a wedding photography vertical.
True.
Look how much those bachas are earning today. Their former assistants.
I had a very weird experience a couple of months back. We were both at a wedding convention, and I met a very celebrity sort of a photographer who was back then only he would shoot Bollywood stars. And he's sitting at the conference, and he came and he introduced himself. He said, you know, I've heard that you are a wedding planner. And I'm thinking in my head, this guy doesn't even remember that I had gone with my portfolio to him 20 years back, asking him for a modeling assignment. And that's when I realized that, you know, even today, they are kind of feeling that they've missed the bus. And even today, they're now finally intrigued. But back then, you're absolutely right. I've seen that reaction from everyone. We don't do weddings. So many event companies would say that. In fact, that's how I think people like Saurabh, Red Events, you know, and many such companies who were okay to get consumed in the emotional angle and keep sitting endlessly.
And they also came from a background where they had that network.
They had the network.
And they from business families.
Yeah, they were okay not to, work in the office working hours, a corporate culture. Sure. I remember as an anchor, I started getting a lot of work to make event flows and suggest to clients directly what to do at a wedding, because there were hardly any companies who would do it. So if they couldn't afford somebody like a Red Events, then they would try and get the DJ and the anchor to give them ideas of how to put it together. And you're right, it is the women of the family who would get in touch and do all of this.
You know, Mareesha, there are thousands and thousands of bankers, software engineers, medicos, lawyers.
Yeah.
But for those of us who got into this space 10 or 15 years ago, the first 100, 200, it's such a special feeling because we are the ones, even today, what we are doing is something very niche. But imagine getting into this, the vision we had or the tolerance we had.
Tolerance as well.
To go through all this.
Yes.
And when you think about it, it is a very, very nice feeling.
Yes. I think you have literally seen this industry grow and become so much more organized that we see today.
But though it continues to be disorganized, which is again the beauty of the industry, right? That's the beauty of the industry.
That is. I think that little bit of madness and insane behavior, erratic
and which is how
lifestyle,
the sector really coped with COVID and bounced back. They literally knew how to make those shifts from 10,000 people weddings to 100 people weddings.
Yeah.
And when the curbs were lifted quickly, 100 became 5,000.
Absolutely. Tell me, do you think the portals that have come up in the last few years, and we see a lot of them, some of them are doing good
reasonably
work.
well, and many just start with a bang and then close down. I've seen hundreds and hundreds of them. Yeah.
But come on, Parthip, tell me, it's not possible that you would have never felt like, oh my God, okay, now who is this? And have you not checked them out and wanted to see what they do?
Absolutely. So when we launched Weddingsutra, in that year itself, there were 10 folks. Actually, people would tell me, this guy is a top private banker. He's launched something like Weddingsutra. How do you hope to compete with them? But what is interesting is that the interest, passion, and creativity which me and my business partner brought in, these people could not bring in. It was all about building a portal with money.
Yeah.
And the moment it's all about that, it doesn't work. Similarly, today I know people who've come back from the US.
Yes.
And they say, I'm a techie. I don't understand all this. I'm building a venue booking platform or a vendor platform.
True.
And I asked them, have you gone and engaged with folks offline? And they say, no, they almost like define themselves as a techie and say that's what they understand. If that is going to be your approach, your wedding business is not going to take off.
But why is that?
Because the way this industry is, yes, technology can solve some problems.
Yeah.
Technology can enhance, but you also need to understand the world of those who are working on ground to figure out how do you come up with those solutions. And you have to work at the insight level and not the information level, because there's literally no information on the numbers in the wedding industry. So it could mean visiting the office of Swaha, spending 2 hours with them for an inside dialogue, not only talking to the founders, even talking to those who are part of the team to understand where are the opportunities for you if you are an entrepreneur looking at launching a wedding related venture. So social media has impacted weddings in such a big way, because we all know how social media changes the fortunes of some wedding vendors.
Right.
But we also know some wedding vendors who are very good at their work,
right,
who continue to do good business and have a very limited presence on social media.
True.
Both coexist.
Yes.
And when we talk of technology, one of the questions which every VC has asked me, how do you build the Uber of Indian weddings? And I tell them, maybe this is not the right time. Perhaps there could be something 2 years later, 3 years later, or maybe even later.
Really? You think we're that far away from having something? Is that again bringing you back to what you just mentioned, which is because it's more emotionally driven?
True.
And
it is, you see, everybody is getting married for the first time.
Yeah.
It is not like
hopefully never
booking,
again.
yes. It's not like booking your taxi, which you would book 6 times a year, or a hotel room, which you would book 10 times a year.
Absolutely.
When you're doing this for the first time, you rely a lot on family and friends.
Yes.
So today we know there are certain portals which are specialized on venue booking, some on photography and makeup artist booking. In some cities, and some categories, they are able to make some headway.
Yeah.
But to do it across cities, across categories, and across income groups is a big challenge.
It is. So whilst Parthip, you had the advantage, the first mover advantage. The ones who come out more recently, I feel, have two advantages. One is investors backing them
Absolutely.
in a very big way, because now that they've seen a Weddingsutra succeed and they're seeing where the industry is going.
And the information which is curated by us, it
it's
serves
already
as a
there.
ready reference. Yeah.
Absolutely. It's all there for them.
And I met a wedding planner in Jaipur 2 months back. He had launched a portal and then he got into wedding planning. And he told me the best thing which I heard. He said, thanks to Weddingsutra and the way you're curating information, it is so easy now to launch a wedding business.
Yes, it is. And not just that, I think wedding portals also have only referred to your website, even if it means as basic as firstly getting data.
True.
Data, which is like the biggest keyword here. They've got data easily from you. They have investor backing because they know.
And the whole learnings from many, almost you can look at Google to read about at least 100 businesses which have been featured in some time or the other.
Plus
and also
social media.
Social media, where it's easy for you to get in touch with brides. To ask them, what services did you use? How can we help improve the services for other brides? So today you have access to all that.
Everything.
But when it's very easy also, you can falter. You need to struggle a little to succeed sometimes, as they say.
Really. And that has, how do you then get into your next groove? Does this bother you that there are just too many of them and they've had the easier way out? You will need to up your game. Does that come to you or?
Not anymore, because I feel very happy that others have had to struggle less than me. Because I also feel that sometimes
when you're very generous.
Because sometimes when you struggle a lot, it also drains you of some energy.
Yes.
And you know what? Whatever said and done, it's like different generations, right?
Yeah.
The life of today's youngsters is so different from the life of their parents.
True.
And it's not necessary, while I may have said that you have to struggle a little sometimes to, get that pot of gold.
Yeah.
It is not necessary, because I do know that something which somebody would have taken 20 years to do, there could be somebody who's smart, intelligent, and learns from others and can do it in 2 years. So it is not, it's almost like, when I was in my B school and I met an HR manager and said that, I'm interested in, I'm looking at marketing or HR. And he said, to be a good HR manager, you have to be in the shop floor of a factory for at least 5 years. Now, that's not something which excited me, but he was not right. You can be a successful HR manager by having worked in a different industry also. You need to understand people. You need to understand business.
Yeah.
Business could be not necessarily, business is not just about factories.
Right.
Could be also the service experience.
True.
So it is not necessary that you have to really, really struggle a lot to do well in business or in any other walk of life.
All right. Now, Parthip, I am going to be putting a huge allegation on you. And you have to be honest. And you have to either tell me, do you accept it or do you deny it? Are you ready?
I'll go for it.
The allegation is that you have made most of the brides competent enough, like a wedding planner or somebody in the decor space. Is that true or false?
True.
And why?
I think if we do not give all that information, they'll just get it from 4 other sources. But as you know, everybody loves creating wedding content. Yeah. And it's for us to talk about how somebody went about planning her wedding with the help of the wedding planner and crediting all those who worked behind the scene. But having said that, I know there are times when, I remember a friend telling me, Parthip, I'm scared to even go on to Weddingsutra because I see so many beautiful things and I'm having such a simple wedding. So we try to also create content on, it's very important, which is about where you see beauty in simplicity, because everybody may not have the budget
Yeah.
for a wedding at a very luxurious destination, or we all know sometimes that it's not possible to have a winter wedding at a Rajasthan palace if you're on a budget. So it's very important, and I still think most people still don't know, that the house of how it works, because
True.
as we spoke, you're getting married for the first time. So you're really not expected to know.
Yeah.
Unlike how you would understand a doctor consultation or a career counselor consultation.
Yeah.
You will really not understand the working of the industry unless you yourself have attended quite a few destination weddings and your friends have really told you how to go about it. So coming back to your question, yes, those references are there, and we picked the best of the photos.
Yeah.
But I think I keep telling my team, to add depth, you always have to talk about how the planners or how the bride managed the plan B.
Yes.
Share her real tips about how to go about it. And everything may seem beautiful when we publish the article, but we know that very often the planners and their family goes through a lot of stress.
Yeah.
So we don't need to talk too much about it.
True.
But a little is important sometimes.
Yeah, you know what, Parthip? That little of yours is also equivalent to a lot of education and awareness, which I think definitely it's on each of us. How do we take it? Do we then use you as a medium to empower ourselves, to amplify the work we do? Or do we get threatened and sit back and say that, okay, it's all out there, what can I do for myself? Tell me, how do planners react? How has their attitude changed? You have worked with, interacted with planners when they were not called planners. They did the job, but they were not called planners. I think around 2010 is when that term planner really came into existence with movies like Band Baja Barat. And then, of course, now you have the new age planners who give it back to the brides, and some suck up where it's not required. When I try to compare it to, say, the fashion world, I feel it's going through that phase of transition from your 90s to 2000, where you had a Madhu Sapre and, a Naomi Chatterjee.
The supermodel type.
The supermodel, and you will remember their names, and they had distinct personalities, which I feel planners earlier had. And now you just can't differentiate one's work from the other. Also, tell me a little about the physical presence of a planner in terms of their own personality and persona. Do you feel that also makes a lot of difference when it comes to them positioning themselves better, because you are in the space of branding marketing?
So one has seen the journey of so many people in the wedding industry.
Yeah.
And while I may not always talk about it, I know really sometimes what made a planner, whether it was a relationship or whether it was a client or whether it was a fact that one wedding went viral. What has really been the journey of the planner? But, it's not that there were a lot of people I knew in the wedding business whom I would meet between, say, 2010 and 2012.
Yeah.
Who really would not care much to interact with me. And a couple of years later, they said, Parthip, I know you for a long time. This is probably in 2012 or 13. Mm-hmm. But I first logged into Weddingsutra and actually spent time last week or last month, and I am just amazed at the depth of information which is there and how much effort has gone into building the property. So I have seen somebody who was literally what I call a freelancer, and is today running a very successful wedding business. I have met somebody who was literally running it the old school way, for whom Weddingsutra is a very, very important part of his journey today. And then I also meet people who are probably starting out now and who are looking up to Weddingsutra to take them to the next stage. True. So there are different people in this industry, just as how there are in different industries. True. Except that our industry is different. That, especially in wedding planning, there are not too many entry barriers. It's not like setting up a TV channel or a bank or building a huge brand.
Huge, The investment at the start level.
So therefore, I would say there are those who probably are getting into it not knowing what is whether they are really there. It's really the right profession for them. But for everybody, it will
Yeah.
just evolve.
Yeah.
Because if they are not a successful wedding planner, they may say, you know what, I'll be a good wedding caterer.
True.
Or they say, okay, fine, wedding planning is not my cup of tea. I will do something else.
Right.
So, and you know what is very special about this industry, Mareesha? I have met so many wedding planners, maybe at least 20 to 30 said, Parthip, I'm getting out of wedding planning. I'm done with it. But none of them have got out of it.
Yeah.
And even if they've got out of it, they've got back into it. Because this is an industry which may really give you, which can lead to some health issues.
Yes.
But the happiness quotient of this industry is so high
True.
that you love going back.
Yeah.
I know it's the same thing. I'm sure, on the mornings of wedding, you say, why on earth did I do this?
Absolutely.
And the moment his wedding is over, after having gone through all of it,
Yeah.
you say, I can't wait to start work on the next wedding again.
True.
So one keeps, these conversations are there,
Yeah.
and everybody's careers will just evolve. Not everybody can be a successful wedding planner.
Yeah.
But almost everybody can do something in a niche opportunity
Yeah.
in the wedding or events space. Because there are so many opportunities.
There are too many. But how much do you feel that the personality of that person plays a role? It's like some of us are known by our names, our individual names, and some of us are addressed to because of our organization names. Which one do you think is a better strategy to work
I think
forward?
whatever said and done, this is a personality-oriented industry.
Yeah.
Don't put in too much effort in figuring out the name of your company.
Yeah.
I say, first get into it. And there are some clients of yours who will know you by your name,
Yeah.
and many others who will follow your company account on Instagram. So I still feel this wedding industry is different, that you need to be there for the space. You cannot say, here, you know what, I'm going to be in front of my screen all day and I'm going to have my team who's going to interact with the clients. You have to have the ability to strike a rapport either with the parents or the Gen X or millennial bride and groom. You have to, either you can be very good at understanding parents and say, listen, I am not going to put up with the spoiled brats. By that, I mean the
Which is
brides.
what I do end up doing.
And well, you're doing the right thing because you know who's spending for the money. Yes. So, or you say, you know what?
Yeah.
I really am going to be, really going to be hanging out.
Yeah.
So initially, I'm going to have a difficult interaction with the bride or groom.
Yes.
But yes, after some time, we break the ice.
Yeah.
And we get to know them, they get to know us. You have to choose that. And which is why, again, I say wedding planning is really not for everybody, but there are enough opportunities in the wedding industry.
Absolutely. And I think your portal features all of it. Digressing into now, say, hotels and tourism boards who are
or
heavily,
DMCs
who are really heavily dependent on you when they want to come down to India and, do these multiple roadshows and meets, etc. Tell me, what is the most exciting interaction that you enjoy the most? Is it with brides? Is it with makeup artists, planners, decor, hotels, tourism boards? What is it? What is the space that you enjoy the most?
I enjoy interacting with planners a lot because there's a little about everything you can get to learn from them.
Yeah.
Sometimes, you could be interacting, you can be interacting with two kinds of photographers. Those for whom it's completely, an art.
Yeah.
And they are not really people's people and they're like, shoot good pictures. Sometimes I'm not able to interact much with them because they can probably really talk about their lens or they can talk about certain settings.
True.
But when you interact with people, with planners, you get to know. But I must tell you, I really enjoy interacting with people who are sometimes working behind the scenes and who are doing a huge volume of weddings.
Yeah.
It could be somebody who is doing fresh fruit counters and I like to learn about, or if I was to interact with somebody who's doing chai and toast and he tells me the story about the first time he went to Turkey and it was his first thing. So whoever you talk to, vendors, and especially those who are, and I must tell you, Mareesha, when I launched Weddingsutra, I ended up even going to Chawls for wedding information because there was a mehendi artist who I knew was very big in Churney Road. And along with my colleague, I remember from Churchgate, we took a train to Churney Road. From Churney Road, we crossed the road. We went, and it was my first visit inside a chawl.
Oh my God.
Where I met this lady who is very successful. And this was the first time we observed how these chawls are structured. And it was and one must say, it's a very nice, vibrant life where all people look at you. Who are these people going? And she invited her into her very small, maybe 100 square feet room where she lived with 3-4 family members, all of whom were very proud of her because she had given employment to 100 freelancer Mehendi Walis. And this was we all know, it's not just today, even back then.
Yeah.
And she showed photos of her work, including some celebrity brides.
Oh my God.
And we went back to office. It was not 2000, maybe 2002. We scanned the photos and we couriered it back to her.
Oh God.
So I love that process and of interacting with people, and which is why this industry is so lively, because they are glamorous.
Yes.
They are hardworking. Of course, glamorous is also hardworking. Then the hardworking people are also comfortable working in glamorous spaces. Then there are those who are third generation businesses. There are some people who have just started like you and Hemant. It's a first generation, and you've quickly learned about the space. You've come from a specialized space. Hemant has come from the hotel industry. You've come from from the entertainment, and quickly you've adapted yourself as wedding planners. Absolutely. And then you've gone on to doing specialized ventures too. So everybody's journey is different.
It is. Tell me one thing, and this is something that has always intrigued me about you. I love the fact that, you are inspired by these different stories that you keep hearing, whether it's a Mehendi Wali or it's a chef or it's a planner. The best part is you remember the stories. Tell me, what is the secret recipe towards having this? Because you are so good with your introductions when I meet you and you have to introduce me to someone and somebody else, you will remember their name, their designation, their history. What is it that Parthip eats to have this kind of...
I've often asked this question, but I'll tell you what,
Please.
I don't use Excel. I remember those little details. And from those little details, you will get to know about the rest of the story.
You do a revision, please tell me. It cannot just be
so I don't have almonds. A lot of people ask me, do you have almonds? No, I don't. But... when you remember interesting details of somebody about how their journey started, then rest of the details you will remember. Because when you remember how their journey started, you will know where they went next. Rather than meeting them today, this is the company they run. And the thing about the wedding industry is, I would not remember the turnover, or I would not know the turnover. I would not know stuff like what fee they charge or, the tangibles. What I will remember are those little details. And once you remember those details about how they started, then it's just very easy to, whether you are writing about them or whether you are introducing them. Because, and that's also a more fun way to work. Because the moment you are too dependent on notes and, presentations,
the visiting card.
But if you remember those, you remember their face thanks to following them on social media. You cull out from them a little about their journey. You will never forget.
Now give me a tip. You are an ace at the art of networking. Tell me, give all our viewers and listeners a tip that when they get into a space, which is a business networking hour, and you are surrounded by 100 people, you will find, say, 10, but you will find 20 familiar faces. That's only 30, and the rest of it I've not even met. What is the best way to go about to try and maximize that business hour of networking?
So if you're in the show business, I'll put it from that lens. Couple of things. Just be mindful of everyone's time, which means if it is a second week of February, don't call Mareesha because she's definitely going to be in at some wedding in the middle of work. Try, once you're mindful of somebody's time, you approach them at the right time, you're able to spend more time with them and get to know them. The second is always try to find what is common between two people when you're introducing them. And the moment, and then it's not only you're not doing something which is very transactional,
Right.
you're also adding value
Yes.
to two people by talking about what's common. And the more you do good stuff like this, the more you build your own network, right? It's not about just connecting two people, because they will always remember you, right?
Yeah.
That Mareesha introduced me to this person at this party. They will always, especially if they met somebody for the first time.
Yeah.
And the third is do a little bit of your homework before you don't have to, that's, a little bit on social media to find out what really interests them. Because whatever people put out on social media is also about the stuff which they're very passionate about.
Right.
I know social media has its ups and downs, and a lot of people feel there's a lot of pressure to show off.
Sure.
But it's also about what is. So sometimes, when people say, sir, you traveled to this place and I remember reading about it, automatically I have a connection and I want to spend time with that person.
Yeah.
Because I know that person is really been following me.
Right.
And then I want to give, if that person has spent time seeing my feed, stories, reading my articles, then I want to give time to that person. And finally, tolerance to ambiguity, what we've spoken about. There are a lot of opportunities which are going to come your way.
Yeah.
And you don't necessarily need somebody to tell you. And especially the events business is such that you don't necessarily need to have the agenda or ask too many questions before you step in there.
Yeah. But
go to the room and walk your way there, find your way there. Yeah.
And walk your way and own the space. I think that really works when you just walk in with a certain sense of confidence, but at the same time, warmth. I think that vibes
and
that
you have
give.
to be mentally prepared to even face rejection, right? Because when you walk in, there are some people who will be very happy to meet you.
Yeah.
Then there are some people who probably even know you and probably will just pretend they don't remember you. And I won't say that's always.
Yeah,
sometimes people do forget, right? I mean, we all know, right? People will say, Mareesha ji, hum mile the, hum pichle hafte. So it happens, right? When you're meeting a lot of people. And
I remember there was one instance when I remember it was somebody from Percept was getting married, and Minoti, who's also my sister and is into anchoring shows, we go there, and I have a very bad memory. Okay, so I have this major issue, and that's why I wanted tips from you. So I can fake it, and I can give everyone a feeling that I know.
Well, even I do that sometimes. I've actually talked to somebody, and I don't remember where I met them. Yeah. And he presumes that, I remember, which,
Yeah. So I was doing my usual, so good to meet you, so good to meet you. And my sister and that gentleman started talking to me, and my sister just intervened, and she's like, do you know this guy's name? Why don't you introduce me to him? And I was like, oh my God, this is like the most embarrassing situation I would have ever been in, where.
Well, I'll share a tip there. Go and introduce that person to somebody whose name you remember.
Okay.
When you introduce that person, the other person will tell you, will mention his name, and then you'll remember, right? So go to a corner. So I'm just hypothetically putting a situation where, I know Mareesha very well, and there's somebody who's been talking to me, and I don't remember the name.
Yeah.
My friend Mareesha, she runs Swaha. And by the way, you should also check out her new show. The show must go on. And then wait for the other person to say, I am so and so. Then you'll remember, right?
Good one. Parthip, I'm going to use this. Yes. Tell me, what is a day in Parthip Thyagarajan's life like?
Okay, as you well know, I'm an early riser. Yes. So I like to get up early in the morning, and the first thing I do within maybe 15 minutes is check important WhatsApps, just for me to, know whom I have to. And I like writing, so, I give a lot of briefs to my writers. So once, maybe in a little later, if there are some important voice notes, I send it out. Thank God for this voice notes feature on, because after some time, it's very, very tiring or stressful typing.
Yeah.
And earlier, while I would spend a lot of time on my laptop, I hardly spend time on my laptop. It's a lot on my phone. And I start my day with a cup of filter coffee and half a cup of filter coffee with lots of sugar. Yes, I need that. I know, though, of course, my dietitian has told me that you don't have coffee on an empty stomach. You should have your breakfast. So I'm doing that. So I have a light breakfast. So I finish a little bit of work in the morning, and I sometimes probably even take a little nap before my breakfast also. So I finish my work. I try to finish as much work between 5 and 6, or the important notes, voice notes, or between 6 and 7, what I'm going to be writing. So the writing bit I take care of, and which is much faster now because I don't have to write the articles myself.
Yes.
I send the voice notes, of whether it's for social media, articles, or even ideas. Though of course, I'm very careful because if the person I've just met previous day, I don't want to send a voice note at 6 a.m. in the morning.
To frighten them.
Yes. So I have a little nap, then I have a light breakfast. I get back to work at about 9 o'clock. That's the time between 9 and 10. I finish my calls with my team. And after that 10, I just chill. I just do work which I want to do. I could return some phone calls. I could read some articles. Then whatever work calls come. And after a light lunch, I just take it easy. I have a 10-minute nap on my sofa. So that is my, I really miss my sofa when I travel.
Yeah.
Because I like to have my, I'm very kind of more than the bed. I find the sofa that 10-minute, and I sleep very well, whether it's 10 minutes or 20 minutes.
Excellent.
And this is really on the day when I'm not going out for meetings. And so no day is similar because you're meeting. And, you're doing, I do a lot of meetings outside. Right now, we're all working virtually. So there's no office routine.
Yes.
And I try to do my meetings at places where I know, where I know the cafe owner, or the, or at a hotel where I know the staff, because it's also nice to take some breaks in between meetings and meet some friends also. Otherwise, if you're just doing work meetings continuously outside, it's important to take those little breaks.
Yeah.
So a very simple life, and
that's how you have
wrap
this
up
calmness on your face, no matter how many people get into your space of working. Parthip has a smile, and he's got this calmness, and that is something that I really envy, because I think we belong to industries jisme we're always on the move. We've got to have our guards up. We've got to be our best all the time.
True.
Parthip, don't you ever get insecure?
More than insecure, I sometimes there are times where you have those little you're very angry about the fact when sometimes it's just behaving unfairly, or somebody is being very difficult. Also, you look at somebody who's kind of is saccharine sweet with you today, but was probably just not like this, anything but that 5 years before. Then you have to just say, what, it's just so important. Life throws so many hurdles at you. How do you move on? And I remember just hearing it from somebody that sometimes it's just important to be brutally honest and say what you feel, and sometimes it's just important to have a non-confrontation approach in life. But the moment you have a non-confrontation approach in life, you're sometimes also building stress because you have not taken it out of your system. So you will never know when to be brutally honest and tell the person what you think, even if that person is wrong, or just say, okay, fine, this person, 90% of what he or she is talking is wrong. But there's 10% which is correct. Do you accept that 10%? Or do you say, 90%, it's important for me to tell the person brutally honest and tell them. So it's always going to be that. But I know what you're saying. Sometimes when you are calm, or beneath that smile, there is also that stress, which is very important for you to recognize or be aware of, and learn to put it behind.
But there is nothing of that in your life.
It is of course there. It is of course there. And it's just about how smartly put it behind.
How smartly you put it behind. Tell me, has anyone let you down ever, professionally?
Of course, yes. I will be lying if I say no. And
do you forgive and forget, or only forgive?
So it is just important. Sometimes I read a very nice article by a therapist once. Sometimes there are a lot of things which you read and you forget, right?
Yeah.
You could have attended a discourse and you'll be angry 1 hour later.
Oh, yes.
But there are some writings of some people you really look up to, which you internalize. And I read somewhere that somebody is just transferring their anger on you. So somebody would have been really, really, really been betrayed by somebody, and they are coming and removing their anger on you. And the moment you understand that they are just transferring, it is very important for you then not transfer it to somebody else, because they have transferred their anger to you. And therefore, what happens typically, we see it all the time, that there's somebody who's running a business.
Yeah.
His customer has really angered him. And what happens? He goes and shouts at his driver, at his employees or his staff.
Right.
Or even at his family members.
Yeah.
Now, that is the mistake he's done. The mistake is not that he's done even more damage to himself by removing his anger on someone he should only love. And there are those things, and therefore it's very, very important. There have been times where, I've snapped at a domestic staff or the building workers, saying, and maybe what I've done is I have understood that. And sometimes, I've also, I think the best thing is sometimes where when you apologize, you are able to, just take it off. Otherwise, when you carry that guilt, it's even worse.
Yeah.
So yes, there have been people, including somebody whom you also know, who has just been, just been nasty.
Yeah.
And then you say, hey, you know what? I'm just going to block this person, because that person is just going to go on sending nasty messages.
True.
And that person will be that way. That person is not going to change. Sometimes you hope that person changes, but there are some people who will not change. And let karma take its course.
My God. Parthip, in so many years, I think now 30 years of you having been in the space of media, tell me what has been that moment which you would think of reflect as probably the weakest or the most low phase in your life professionally, when you felt it was the end of things, you were confused and you were battling it, but back then there were no outlets. You had to face it yourself, not even recognizing the damage it's doing to you. How did you come out of it, and how did you pull yourself up and believe that the show must go on?
Mareesha, the way you've asked me this question, I almost have tears in my eyes. Because sometimes your lowest professional phase is when you have your lowest personal thing. Because when you are sorted personally with your family or your spouse or your children or friends, you can weather any storm at work. So there was a phase when I was going through personally, and that was my lowest professional phase also. And that lowest professional phase was simply because I was not making money after, after going through so much. And when you would look at what, you were earning that month and you say, my gosh, is this all I am earning? And it was only one time it happened where I got up. I was all alone in my room in the middle of the night. And one of those things, maybe in 10 years or 20 years, I actually cried. And I just cried and cried, talking about why I'm upset, because why this is not going well in my life, that is not going well in my life. And I just cried. And next day morning, I was fine. And that is also because, again, I had read that it's just very important sometimes, rather than talking about it. Sometimes just talking about it does not help, right? Yeah. Because the person on the other side, who knows, it may be gossip for that person, right? Because we all know that, right? Yeah. Sometimes. And why stress somebody else? Like, for example, my parents, by going and talking about the stress I'm going. Because they are also sometimes at a phase where they can't help you. Right. Your friends can't help you. There was nothing like industry colleagues at that time, right? So I just cried. And next day morning, the show went on.
I'm just amazed from where you would have got that strength to pull yourself up. And I tell you, for me, sharing is important, but you're so right that there are times when you don't want to bother somebody else.
Or people say, talk about it on social media. It's not always the case. Sometimes we do know what happened in the Me Too movement, that it was so therapeutic for so many women to share their stories. And then it all became about sharing.
Yeah.
But that was a very different context.
True.
And they say, you're going through anything stressful, talk about it. I have, even though I'm a person who really believes in the power of social media, just yesterday, I was talking to a school friend who was talking about loneliness. I said, please, even if you don't open an Instagram account, open a Facebook account, start a LinkedIn account so that you can start conversations with others. Join Facebook groups. Don't feel, disheartened if your posts get no likes, but connect with that. But that does not mean that you have to talk about your problems. For some people, it may work. And for some people, it may not work.
Yeah.
Social media is not for talking about your problems.
Yeah.
It is about learning and getting inspired, getting motivated.
True. And sometimes it just helps to be able to process it from within and just talking to yourself sometimes rather than putting it out there, because I also feel that the reaction you get is so momentary, and you get those emojis and you get people pinging you, and in 24 hours it's forgotten.
Or sometimes somebody we know in the wedding industry, they say, listen, I'm going to expose this person tomorrow because I have not got paid. And everybody is more curious about who this person is rather than really helping the person.
Absolutely.
They're like, name this person, we will sort him out.
Yeah.
But we really don't know what is the thing. Is that person holding up payment because he doesn't want to pay, or that person has not completed the job? Because social media can never tell you the full story also. Right?
Yeah.
So it's important that time to really empathize with that person rather than being curious. What happened? Who betrayed him? Who is not paid up? Okay, and I'm going to talk about it in my circles. That's not the thing.
Which is so difficult to control. So it's better to have yourself as your greatest strength and believe in what you want to do. Parthip, what do you believe the wedding industry, especially in India, where is it headed? And when we talk about the show must go on, to everyone who's entering the industry today, I think it's overcluttered.
Yes.
Would you still recommend that they come in this space, and how do they create their niche, and where do you see Weddingsutra heading from here?
Well, I'll answer the first part. That this industry is just growing by leaps and bounds, but social media, digital, friends and family also means that more dependence on them means that does not mean there's that many wedding planners who are going to be there, right? But just imagine today, only as per our research, only 10% of HNIs are having a destination wedding. Just imagine if that becomes 11%. The opportunities in newer destinations like Siliguri, Bikaner, Pushkar, for entrepreneurs there. So I was talking to a student the other day who was studying event management, and she said with pride, sir, I am from Jodhpur and I want to go back to Jodhpur and set up my own wedding planning company. I said, spot on. You may not get to do an Umaid Bhavan wedding, but which is the place closest to Jodhpur? And she spoke about Pushkar. I said, you are in the best place possible to start a wedding business in places where there is a need for talent.
Right.
And therefore, I feel the wedding, the need for wedding vendors, professional wedding vendors, diligent professionals is only going to grow. And wedding planners too. But that doesn't mean that there is a space for so many wedding planners who can command a big fee. There are many others who may have to work at the freelancer rates. True. And therefore, you have to keep that in mind when you're setting up your business.
Right. And try to create a niche and find a new love like you found for food.
Yes. So as far as Weddingsutra is concerned, we hope to continue to inspire, educate. And today, if we are just we still have an exclusive network of just 500 to 1,000 members. I feel even if you take it to 2,000, I'll be very, very happy that we are able to give a solid direction to so many hardworking, talented professionals who want to work with couples who are looking for the best wedding professionals.
True. Although wedding is a day we hope is only coming once in everyone's lifetime, I think the professionals working in the wedding industry can truly look at a lifetime of togetherness amongst each other and within a fraternity. And definitely, Parthip, you play a very big role in that journey of everyone. I have to say
one thing I'd like to say is that I always tell people, regardless, even if you're in event management starting out today, always have that one talent.
Yeah.
Either through your personality or with your hands, and you will never be unemployed even a single day. Like, you are an anchor.
Yeah.
You can speak. They will always be, right? Even in COVID, events were not happening and you had a speaking assignment every week. Similarly, if you have an interest in style, you can train to be a makeup artist, and you will always have work. You are whether you are a actor, anchor, makeup artist, designer, or somebody who can learn to create magic with flowers.
Yeah.
It is, and that is why I still feel the wedding planners are some of the happiest professionals, because they are working with people, and they are working on ground.
Yes, absolutely.
They are not in a glass office and in front of the screen 12 hours a day.
True. And I think that the fact that we are able to stay happy from within only stems from the fact, like you said, the most stressful day leads you to say, I'm leaving this industry. But we all jump back to it because it's the live wire. It keeps you alive. It keeps that heartbeat pounding high, but we just love it. We're addicted to it. And I don't think that's leaving either of us.
And talking of food, I remember, Mareesha, once you said that there was a client of yours with whom you had to do 6 food tastings.
Oh, yeah. You remember?
Well, I remember that. And I tell people, if I was a wedding planner, the only thing I would not get bored with is food tasting. I could do 6? I could do even 12 food tastings. Because though I don't know how to cook, I like critiquing food.
You do.
So that part of it, I envy you.
And talking about food, it is time for lunch. So I'm going to wrap this up with a big thank you to you, Parthip. I'm feeling extremely happy with the fact that I have been able to chat with Parthip, the person. Of course, we love your brand, but I'm happy that I got this special time with you to know you as a person. And I think you've really inspired me and many others who've listened to us today. It's been a remarkable journey. You don't open up easily. And I feel I'm truly, truly privileged. Thank you for this, Parthip.
Thank you, Mareesha. I have interviewed a lot of people, but this interview is one of a kind where I've spoken about myself, and I've spoken about so many parts of my life, which I have rarely spoken about. So this will always be very, very special for me. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And the show must go on.